Ladies and gentlemen, good. Just so you guys are aware, we are in social studies here, and we are specifically talking for the next couple of weeks here about the state of Arizona. And we're going to start off with the history of Arizona. And I'm talking about early Arizona, like how Arizona became a state. But again, we're talking very specifically about just our home state here. If you notice, yes, this is social studies, but there's no page numbers to go by. If you also notice, I'm going to strongly suggest that you have your paper packet out while we're doing this, because as you go, follow along as we go along, you're going to see the exact slides I printed off and put in your paper packet in case something happens with your flash drive, you don't have it. You're going to still have all these slides that you can get the answers from. And if you notice on the assignment in your paper packet, we have all these questions to go through, and you need to be filling in the blanks as we go along. So this is one of those assignments where you can definitely have the paper packet right here. Pause the video on a slide. You can find the answers. And don't just use the paper packet. I mean, this teaching video is going to greatly assist there. But one thing we're going to talk about for the next few days is really the Arizona state flag. And here's the main question of the day. Why in the world does Arizona's state flag have some of the same colors as the Spanish flag? And by Spanish, I'm talking way over there in Europe, across the Atlantic Ocean. Why in the world do you notice the same red and yellow here? Well, we're going to get there. We're going to talk about a lot of the state's history. But we're also going to talk about, answer this question at the end. So, let's get on here. And again, I would strongly suggest you have the paper packet assignment out as we go along, because already, as you probably know, we do not know since when, but throughout this state, throughout this land, the tribes living here for years and years and years. But when I say years, I mean centuries. This is where you're going to come in your paper packet. You can pause the video here, because here's some of the answers you need to write in. Many of those tribes are the Anasazi, the Hopi, the Navajo, and the Apache. All kinds of different tribes are going in and out of this land that we know of Arizona. As you might know, there's a lot of traveling by these Native American tribes, so they didn't just always stay right here in Peridot or in San Carlos or, in the cliff dwellings up towards Roosevelt Lake. They might have settled there for a time, but for the most part, they were very nomadic, which means they moved around where the food was, and of course the weather. Summer months, mostly up in the mountains. Winter months, where it's warmer down here, mostly down in the flatter lands. But here's the deal. We know that there are many Native American tribes for centuries in this land. We just don't know the exact years. And that's going to be key when we talk about that main question about the Arizona state flag, is that we don't know the year, because as you might know, there's not a lot of recorded history. And when I mean recorded, I don't mean like you record your voice in a CD. By recorded, I mean written down, right? We don't have, this Hopi tribe was here at this date, and this Apache tribe was here at this date. That wasn't ever written down. But we know that they're around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Then as we fast forward, I want you to notice again the earliest recorded history. Again, by recorded, I mean written down history. Here we have the first glimpse of the Spanish. The Spanish actually wrote down what they did, and we know that they were here in 1540. How do we know that? Because they wrote it down. That's what I mean by recorded history. Now, let's go back to that. This guy right here, his name is Coronado. He was around this time in 1540. Again, we know that because it was written down history. He came all the way from Spain. A couple important things to note. There were not horses that are in North America. Horses were from Europe, they're from Asia and things like that, but they were not in North America. The only reason there's horses in North America is because the Spanish brought them over when they came in their big ships. Now here's the deal. Why in the world did Coronado come all the way from Spain, a long ways away across the Atlantic Ocean, and come here? And the reason was he was looking for a city of gold. You might hear of the, Desperado and different things like that, but that was the whole reason he came, is because he heard rumors that there's a city made completely of gold. And that's what he is looking for. And of course, you might know he never found a city made completely of gold, but that's why he came all this way. Brought his horses, brought people, and he wrote down exactly what he did, which is why we know where he went in 1540. There are also Spanish missionaries that started and taught Christianity, and they built Fort Tucson in 1775. Again, how do we know that? They recorded it. That Fort Tucson later became the city of Tucson. Now, we'd also have to say the Spanish didn't all come with, peace and missionary things. They also came and they fought wars and battles against different Native American tribes. Because as much as I hate to say it, the truth is a lot of them came for greed to get gold and to get rich. Now, we're fast forwarding a little bit, still over 100 years ago in history, but Mexico is a country to the south of us. If you notice, Arizona touches Mexico on our southern border. You go about 150 miles south of Peridot, you can run into Mexico. That's a whole nother country. You might know that in Mexico they speak Spanish. Well, that's because the Spanish came over and they settled in in modern day Mexico, and Spain used to rule them. Well, Mexico also had their fight for independence, their freedom to become their own country, and they actually won that war in 1821. And believe it or not, Mexico is this kind of bluish country. That's what it looks like today. But Mexico at that time included most of Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, and a lot of part of California. Mexico was a lot bigger at that time. But in 1821, the United States, as we know it, really only went as far as the Mississippi River. You might know a little history here about Texas, how they fought. And they didn't fight against the United States for independence. They fought against Mexico for independence. Texas is known as a Lone Star State because Texas was its own country for a period of time. And then they became part of the United States later. But this time in 1821, Arizona is not part of the United States. Arizona was claimed by Mexico. Now you guys know that the Native American tribes are here all throughout that time. And there are a lot of battles fought against the country of Mexico at that time too. But we move on. There was a war fought by Mexico and the United States of America. And what happened is in 1847, the United States is going south. Not over to Arizona, but south. And they actually conquered what's known as Mexico City, which is the capital city of Mexico. And they said, hey, you know what? Instead of taking over Mexico, why don't you just sell us a bunch of this land? We won the war, sell us the land. And so that's what Mexico agreed to. So when Mexico, if we go back here, this whole section belonged to Mexico. And at this time, Mexico said, okay, we'll give you this land if you give us back this chunk that you conquered. Give us this back and we'll sell you a bunch of this land here. So that's when at that time Arizona was claimed by the United States of America. It was not, it was not a state yet. Again, we know that the Apache and other Native American tribes were here, and now instead of fighting Mexico, they're fighting for their land against the United States, because before Mexico claimed this land as theirs, and now the United States is claiming this land as theirs. And of course, the Native American tribes were here the whole time. So we move forward, and if you notice, this is again what we call the continuous United States. Well, a little bit known about Arizona is that Arizona was the last state in the continuous United States. Alaska and Hawaii came afterwards. If you remember, in our western region, Alaska's way up by Canada, Hawaii is way out in the Pacific Ocean, right? But Arizona was actually not a state yet. New Mexico was, Utah was, Nevada was, California was. But it wasn't until February 14th, 1912, that the state of Arizona became part of the United States and the 48th state. February 14th, you might know we just recently had Valentine's Day. That's why sometimes Arizona is known as a Valentine's state. So 1912 was when Arizona actually became a state. And you guys might know that every state comes up with their own state flag. Now we're going to go through this a lot later about other symbols in the Arizona state flag. But part of the reason they chose this red and this yellow here is because the Spanish were some of the first people that had recorded history. This is one of your last questions here. Again, I'm going back to we know that there were Native American tribes all throughout this region for centuries beforehand. We just don't know what years because it wasn't written down. The Spanish had the first written down history in the area that we called Arizona, which is why in 1912, when they made the Arizona state flag, they said, let's give a little tribute to Spain and put the red and the yellow stripes in there to kind of honor part of that recorded history of Spanish being here. So that is why. Now again, that's the answer number 7. If you missed some of these in here, every single one of these questions were answered in the slides right here. You can see the different blanks that you have. If you go back and you look at all these slides, go back and pause the movie. You have it, all the different answers right here that they need to fill in. Or again, I printed off all the slides for you so you can read, you can look it up in the paper packet too. But this is your assignment for the day. Guys, we're going to talk more about the Arizona flag throughout the week, and of course more about Arizona, but I just wanted to give you some of the early Arizona history here. But guys, this is your assignment for today. I want to wish you Lord's blessings today and always as you praise your Savior.